I don't know. It's not a lot. To both of us, this is the time that you've been on my together. I hope you can hear this. Okay. We gotta produce. I hear these things like that. So often. But that's part of it. It's like it's hard. You don't have to. If you had our city council, it's you totally like if you're being executed, they're not to step out. Bad enough, my friend. Yeah, sure, think of man. I missed it. I'm gonna fuck some of it. So that's all. I do. That's the fun. Shots like city people are gonna match. And it's coming out. Then the measures. But I measures most of the opinions on those. Yeah. But to have a touch on the head with everyone. I don't put a lot of the time out. Crazy. Yeah, that should be a phone. Doing well. You've been fine. The question to know what the record. Now they have been like a years. Should be this one. That's not good. It's your way. Measure. You haven't the following, yeah. The net ends in actions to 1309 of the Constitution of North Dakota, $30 from publicities. The say the language to correct. Yes, but politely say. That's good. Just time to do it. I'll do it. I'll just I love it. I love it. Yeah. It's just to do so. On the back, of course, going to get I joke sarcastic stuff is screwed back. It is rubber. No! Measure in the real solutions to for number 3 of the Dakota. According to the best for proof constitution, required under the petition measure the laws of service. But not written on armor. Object elect for these actions. An increase in, yeah. But this is an interesting one. Now, this the debate next. There's not many people on budget. So we want to reject this. Before the vote of the as usual, look, very nice. I don't know. To go through a zone at the 5% type of selection, 30 numbers, another 289. So that a good one. Yeah. Also, that's the plan. The John Dollar. Yeah. This is about people and their natural. And themselves for just for the player. Understand. There's an obvious person. But the regulars you have to should appreciate that people. The went the just the mountains sent us funded by North Dakota, not inside it. And they use footballs. Obviously, I don't know to come in the measures out. Too. I don't think that's a I but there's another that we talk with people and say, Jim, it's like that against immigrants. Sure, you vote now. We've had to really consider that. People have been in Bangladesh whatever too long. It's only that other than I think very jobs I don't have a very well version as a first name. I don't get a thought about that. I think that's yeah. So what's your take on probably Jim suggested disabilities and stuff. Not disabilities we could those doesn't like that. Doesn't like that stuff. But really, when I'm a little less villain, we talk about that's tough. Difficulty. They, they don't have an idea. Never. Looking at all my occurrences. No. I'm not I was gonna do that. We had a Goodness.
All the faith in the world.
All right, we're back. You'll see us in a minute. We're sorry about that.
We're trying.
By the way, I think this is as good as any. We're not going to announce this, but we might as well. We are looking to hire a producer. Just kidding. Just kidding, but it sounds like we might need one. Right, Leif?
I'm just worried it's my fault. This seems
Every
like
time
an
you show up,
ongoing
things
issue.
happen.
All right.
All right, so let's just start at the beginning with the measures. We're going to go over measures today.
Yeah.
We're going to go over city council and
Talk about some other local happenings.
yep, absolutely. So measure one.
Starting off the top, yeah, measure one. That is the language measure, and the official text reads: this measure amends and reenacts sections 12 and 13 of Article 9 of the Constitution of North Dakota relating to terminology describing public institutions.
And let's let's let you lead the way this time. I forget who led the way the first time.
Okay, measure one. I'm in favor of it.
In favor of
Time to be the adults in the room.
Yeah.
Updates the language. I see no problem with it. The fiscal impact is nothing, so it's a good deal.
Yeah, makes sense. Obviously, on the side we mentioned, some will feel like this is political correctness creeping into whatever.
Maybe overreach, overstep.
Honestly, on this one, I personally, I have no problem with it. Number 2.
This measure amends and reenacts sections 2, 3, 4, and 9 of Article 3 of the Constitution of North Dakota relating to the process for approving initiated constitutional amendments, the requirements of a single subject for each petition and the measure, the individuals able to create a petition, and the requirement that the ballot measures must be voted on at the primary and general elections.
Yeah, this is too much in my opinion.
It's too much all at once.
Increases the percent of votes, increases the amount of times that's going to be brought before the people. I'm not for this.
I could be okay if like you mandate that they all have to be at the general election or something, but the fact that you try to split it up between votes, I don't like that.
2 elections for a prime or for a ballot initiative for me, and it's the percentage increase of signatures required, 4 to 5%. That's 31,163 to an increase of 38,954.
7,500 or so.
30,000 votes.
Right.
No. To me, a ballot initiative is the power of the people, and I think they're limiting that.
And I think I agree on this one. And I use the property tax measure as an example of something that was really well done by the people. I do still stand by the comment that I made 10 minutes ago, but nobody heard, that I still don't like the idea that outside interest groups can easily get measures on the ballot. I just don't like that. I wish that it was just used the way that it was intended to be used, but there's nothing that I can do about that. I hope this does not pass. Number 3.
This is the legacy fund one. So the constitutional measures 3. This measure amends and reenacts section 26 of Article 10 of the Constitution of North Dakota related to spending and transfers from the legacy fund. So if we want to go a little more in depth.
This one's an interesting one.
Yeah. Its whole goal with the legacy fund. Leif, you want to lead on this?
Okay, we're talking about spending down the principal allowable
Right.
of the legacy fund. Now it changes it from 15 to 5%, and that's every 2 years. So biennium essentially. So you're basically going from 2.5% per year to 7.5%.
Yeah.
Now here's the kicker. What does the legacy fund make?
I don't know.
5 to 7% is what I've been told, what I looked up. This is supposed to be the people's money. It's our money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a no on this. I know some people argue that, well, it keeps pet projects at bay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, but I am fearful that because what else it does, it used to go into the general fund, that spending.
Sure.
Now it creates the what is it called? The legacy earnings fund.
Okay.
And now I'm guarding against the long play here. I'm afraid. And where does the legacy fund come from? 30% of oil extraction tax.
Right.
I don't want to see the likes of Harold Hamm or other lobbyists saying, you know what? Now that the legacy earning fund is earning you $3 billion a year in North Dakota, our oil extraction tax should be lowered.
Sure.
Gotcha.
That's what I want to guard against, because that is also a resource of the people in North Dakota.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm probably against this one. I'm honestly not sure I'm on this one. Like to be quite frank. But I'm probably against it. I'm leaning against it.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I would agree with that. Like we said 10 minutes ago, this is at least below first stone.
Right.
So I would definitely lean no, but we still have 4 weeks to make up our minds. So.
You still have time. Leif makes some very good points there with it. Obviously, anytime you can decrease government spending, it seems well, and this may in effect do some of that, but then there's also some negative side effects that come.
This one just has a little bit more of a caveat than just
decreasing, cut, then just cutting out the chamber EDC or something like that. You
That's
know?
later.
Oh, that's later. Okay. Sounds good.
It
All
was
right.
a meeting last night.
It was a great time.
Measure 4, the most
This one,
hotly
so
contested hot button topic.
yeah.
Measures of the fall.
Well, and maybe it shouldn't be the most hotly contested one because the next one's pretty extreme too.
That's true. The next one's been around a lot longer too.
Um,
Measure 4, the measure amends sections 1, 14, 15, and 16, and repeals sections 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10 of Article 10 of the North Dakota Constitution related to prohibiting all political subdivisions from levying any tax on real property except for bonded indebtedness until paid. And obviously, we hosted a debate last week. Jonathan hosted. Councilman Mike Blesson was the moderator between Rick Becker and Keep It Local Representative. What's his name again?
Bob Harms.
Bob Harms. That is it. Excuse me. I apologize, Bob. And that was a great debate. Went on for over an hour and a half. They went back and forth. It was a really interesting because it was a long form debate. I really enjoyed how they handled that. Mike Blesson allowed for a lot of discourse between the two candidates. I think he did a great job trying to make that work.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the format of it, and I look forward to more. And
let's hear Leif's take on Measure 4.
I was just going to lead into that.
Okay, I view this as a modern day tax revolt.
Sure.
And whether the pitchforks are real or the metaphorical, revolts are not well thought out sometimes. Now, I think there was a lot of work put into this, signatures, all that stuff. But I'm a no for the reason that I honestly think it's going to increase spending.
Sure.
If we wipe the slate clean and say, okay, Minot taxpayers, you're not paying anything now except for bonded debt because it doesn't cover that. Bonded debt still has to be paid. They can still special assess. They can now say, and remember, this only gets rid of property tax based on assessed value. There's already legislation in the works to look at square footage or property tax based on the number of rooms. Down south, you literally have houses that don't have closets because they were considered a room. That's how taxes used to be done.
For sure.
I foresee other government entities raising taxes no matter what to cover some stuff when their constituents don't have to pay taxes now and the state picks it up. The other reason I don't like it, if you look at like District 38, District 40, my District 3 is different than 5, which is just in the city.
Yeah, District 5 is a very interesting situation for how it's, especially compared to its neighboring districts.
And the reason is now you have legislators that are going to be put in an interesting situation because it's going to be rural versus city. It's a problem to me. And at some point they're going to have to address, like now, if this passes, the budget is locked in at 2024. What we spend, I think we collected $24 million in Minot and property taxes.
Give or take, yeah.
So the state will reimburse that, but then at what point does it change? And how is it based on? What's the change based on? We got 5,000 people that moved to Minot. How do we increase that? We don't know. What's the process? So there are parts of it I like, but I'm going to vote no.
Sure. And I think that's a lot of the general thought is the unknown behind it, why a lot of people are against it. One interesting thing this morning, Merrill Pepcorn and Congressman Kelly Armstrong had a debate on KFGO radio out of Fargo, and this measure got brought up, and both of them were against it.
Both
candidates running for governor are against it.
Yeah.
In the senatorial debate from last week, Senator Kevin Kramer said he was undecided, but he was leaning in favor of, and then Katrina Christensen said she was against. So it's interesting to see a lot of big name people coming out against it in the state.
It's interesting that Kevin Kramer didn't straight up come out against it.
I think that's the more interesting thing is how many big name politicians you have against it, and then he's at least potentially for it.
We have an interview with him that's supposed to come out Thursday, I believe. Interesting interview, I think. I think it was actually interesting. So some of those interviews you do, they're just kind of blah. It's just question and answer. With the people that go to Washington, they get very well versed on how to
how to answer those questions.
without answering a question.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's probably some of that in that interview, but we talked a lot about North Dakota stuff. We didn't even talk, like the first 30 minutes of the interview was just North Dakota stuff, not even
Anything federal related
that really he involves him. Yeah.
Sure.
And so it was a little bit interesting. Measure 4. All right. This is my problem. And this is basically, I think, probably the thing that's going to decide how I vote on it, which this is really a vulnerable thing to do, isn't it? Do you care? Maybe at this point you don't, about saying how you're going to vote.
Voicing my opinion.
How you're gonna vote.
I think I'm known in town as a pretty opinion.
Yeah, but how you're going to actually vote?
on measure 4?
Just any measure.
Oh no, that doesn't bug me.
That doesn't bother you?
I'll
Does it
tell-
bug you,
oh, yeah.
Kyler?
Not necessarily.
I don't-
I'm fine
yeah,
with
I don't love it.
If I'm undecided, it does. If I know how I'm voting, I can
Yeah.
care less.
Right.
That's where I'm at on that.
Measure 4, I'll probably vote for it. This is why. Because there needs to be some type of reform, and it hasn't happened. The locking those numbers in place is a concern. In order to get that redone, it's going to have to go before the people again, which is another reason why Measure 2 should not pass,
thing.
because there needs to be the ability, and that's been my concern the entire time. My concern with it, and it does not go away, and I don't think that this is the perfect fix for property tax. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what is going to happen in the future, because money is going to change, and how it's going to happen is going to change. But it's gone before the legislature how many times over the past decade?
15 years, yeah.
And nothing's happened, right?
That's a long road to kick a can down, and it's been going on
Yeah.
and on
Yeah.
and on.
And I don't feel like this. I feel like if this doesn't get passed, then one person said it'll be looked at two ways. One way is, oh, the people cared enough to get 30,000 signatures and get this on as a measure. And then it'll be looked at the other way of, well, the people voted it down, so they don't even really want property tax reform. And that's unfair, because you, like in your statement, it's not that you don't want property tax reform, it's that you just don't agree with the way that it's being taken care of in this measure. So I don't know that there's a guarantee that if this doesn't pass, that our legislature will fix, or at least start going down a path of reform. This, I think, pushes them where they have to start looking at stuff, and they're going to have to figure out how to work together and get amendments done and whatever it takes to do it. And so I know that that's probably, someone will say that that's not a good thing to vote on, but I think it finally tells them that, you have to do something. You have to fix this now.
Yeah. Do you think you would have people that, because they're so against this, that it being forced onto them to have to fix, they would, for lack of better terminology, intentionally derail any legislation that would come afterwards in the first biennium?
Right. So basically,
I mean, that's a little paranoid.
Basically, what you're going down is a rabbit hole of people say that this is not a good idea. So then they want it to fail. They want this to be terrible. They want doomsday to happen. And then they can go and map out a plan.
And then they feel like they're the winner at the end.
Yeah.
Which I hope it's not going to happen.
Only have 2 to 4 years probably, because that's probably not, it could be a new person coming in which case they would have 8 years, but they don't have very long to get that done. For A, and then B, their constituents should be so mad at them.
They should, yeah, and they should have every right to be.
But
I hope that doesn't happen, and I don't think it will.
Yeah, and there is still a chance, because to my argument, people say, if the legislature hasn't done anything to this point, why do you think they're actually going to do something now? But to me, it feels like there are holes in this that need to be addressed. There are spinning areas that are going to be of concern that it has to be addressed. So I think that it would be like, no, it has to be a high priority for us. Because
it got passed, there's some of these issues that are so pressing, they have no choice but to address.
Right. As far as the local, how it affects local, I mean, I said it with an interview I did with Daryl Lee's, asked the question, what is local control? And I get the idea that right now cities are able to impose property taxes, which gives local control. Do I think that suddenly we're not going to have fire and we're not going to have these things? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it'd be shocking if that was the case.
I think this measure leaves open for the ability for fees to still be charged, which, I mean, honestly, I don't even like the name of the measure. It's very misleading. But it leaves room for fees to still be charged. And some would even call those fees taxes.
It's just in a different form.
Yeah, fees to be charged based off other metrics, which would allow the city to still generate revenue of their own will. But it will probably also force some spending onto sales tax. Not a huge fan of that, but the typically the argument there is that sales tax is a more fair tax because you have the choice to buy or not.
Yeah.
Whereas property, once you've lived somewhere for 60 years, 40 years, 30 years, whatever that is, eventually it seems like you would begin to get a break in your property taxes eventually.
That's fair.
So I don't know. I guess you can hear me say yes on this, and you can tell that I'm not like a 100%. Oh yeah, I'm all about this measure. This is it. Like I'm not there. I lean towards yes though on it. So that's where I'm at.
I'd have to agree with that take. Being the contrarian I am, I feel like all the people speaking out against it is a reason to be in favor of, whether that's a good thing or
Well,
not.
Leif, we love you.
I mean as in the higher level politicians of the state.
Gotcha.
I apologize if I wasn't clear there, Leif. With the amount of high level people speaking out against it, I don't like that I don't even know that it is a concerted effort. I don't like that it feels like it could be a concerted effort to be against it. And that's something that bugs me. I understand they're coming from good points and positions where they say that. I'm not even 100. I'm like Jonathan. I'm not 100% sure if I'm for it yet, but I'm definitely leaning that way.
Yeah.
If I can interrupt just a second.
I want to hear it.
What I wish would have happened.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it wouldn't have been written this way, and we would have started with like school districts.
Okay.
Sure.
Because it's in the state constitution.
Right.
Like, let's go 100% funding from the state and see how that works.
So,
but that's a wish, I guess.
So we're going to start doing another episode on Thursday mornings at 8. Are you a morning person?
I can be.
Because one day.
No, Tuesdays after a 5-hour council meeting.
No.
Tuesday, 2 p.m. gets early all of a sudden.
I would love to have some good discussion on the schools not supposed to be funded by property taxes. Because that's
a whole conversation.
Yeah, everybody says the Constitution says, well, I always thought we were supposed to obey the Constitution. So I don't get, and I'm not saying that it doesn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. But I always struggle with this because, like, how in the world does that happen? But that's probably because of how I was raised. So
sure,
we'll blame that.
Well, so, okay, let's just talk about it for a second. What if the state funds, most of the school board funding it goes to staff.
Yeah,
I mean, it's something like it's 90-some%.
It's very high.
Vast
very
majority
high.
Is payroll and stuff.
So what if infrastructure were left up to the school district and the state funded staff? But now do you get in the situation where you have school districts or communities trying to outbuild each other?
Yeah, and
we have a fancier school than you do.
All of a sudden now everybody wants an Olympic swimming pool in their high school, and I see where the possibility, of course, I see where that could be a possibility. Yeah.
See, that'll be a good discussion one day. All right, we got one more on this one. Number 5.
Measure 5.
I don't think you've led in with an opinion yet. You get a lead this time.
I get a lead with 5. This measure creates a new chapter of the North Dakota Century Code related to that can't be right. North Dakota Century Code related to the legalization of cannabis and related regulation. That was too many relateds in there. So it's the full legalization of marijuana in the state of North Dakota for recreational legalization. Yep. Medical has been around for better part of 6 years at this point. I'm a live and let live person. I have no issues. If alcohol is going to be legal, I have no issue with marijuana and cannabis being legal. All
right. I'll go next because we made Leif go first. You got to go last.
Yeah.
I'm against this one.
Fair.
You probably saw that coming.
I had a feeling, but
yeah. First off, I mean, how many years until we're like a state like Oregon where we're legalizing everything? Just let people live. Let them do it. And I think that's a terrible place to be. And if you went back to alcohol, and I haven't done research and read about all the prohibition days and all the things that went on during that time, but I probably would stand on a position where I was not necessarily for the legalization of that. I wouldn't be for the legalization of tobacco use and all that too. So you can.
I think that's fair.
You can see where I'm at with all that stuff.
But it's a principled stance. Like it's if you're not picking and choosing. It's
right. yeah, that's basically where I'm at. But
Yeah.
I'm not picking and choosing. I'm not a fan of any of them, so I'm not a fan
So-
of this one either.
which is fair, and that's completely reasonable. Leif?
Some might say it's not reasonable, but Leif, your turn.
I'm a yes on this.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned prohibition.
I'm
No.
not very well versed, so if you
Okay.
want to get into a deep discussion, I probably won't be able to hold much.
Well, the rumor is my grandfather used to
Sweet.
play poker at one of the speakeasies in here with Babyface Nelson in town.
All right,
I don't know
all
if
right.
that's true or not.
All right.
But,
Al
it
Al
is a good
Capone watching
story.
over the shoulder.
but the big thing with prohibition was one of the reasons to get rid of it was the bathtub gins.
Yep.
I can't
Right.
remember Jake Leg. Some of the
So basically, the
but-
homemade stuff.
the
Yeah,
homemade
that was pretty much
stuff
just
that wasn't
methanol that-
healthy and it
Yeah.
made you blind. That's not why I have visual issues.
That's good clarification.
Now here, I don't partake. I never have. I'm also not very happy with how the state legislature handles some ballot initiatives.
Okay.
They were not very kosher with the medication, the medical cannabis.
They drug their feet a little
And,
bit.
They made it a problem to actually access it. Is
Okay.
it affordable? I had an issue with that.
Yeah.
Simply because I think a lot of people can benefit. The biggest reason I'm a yes on this is I want to take away the ability for greedy drug dealers to lace marijuana, cannabis that is not addictive with fentanyl and cause fentanyl deaths.
Sure.
Mhm.
That's what they're doing. They're trying to get people hooked on something that is not
Yeah.
addictive.
Mhm.
And I don't want to see any more deaths from that.
Right.
I did recently go to the MSU, the gal who started, I think what was the Hope?
The Hope
Her-
Foundation or
Her
Hope Clinic?
daughter's Hope. I can't remember. I'm pulling a blank here. But like,
Go to Hope Clinic? Something
No.
like that?
no.
that's not it.
Okay,
What
okay,
was her name?
okay.
I can't remember.
Excuse
but,
me.
Like, I have a problem with that. And
Yeah.
you're well aware of my relative.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And the work he's done, he's actually a hero of mine, what
Mhm.
he's gone through and to be doing what he's doing now. And for people who don't know, he's actually the CEO or director of Heartview.
Yep.
And he's got an interesting story that people should listen if he wants to tell it.
Without a doubt.
Well, there's our take on the ballot measures.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just
All
like
of them.
that.
Yeah.
We did it.
I think we should stop with the ballot stuff.
Yeah, I think
Let's not keep moving through the ballot. All right.
we did well with that, guys. I think that was a great run.
We did host a debate for measure 4. So if you're interested in learning more about some of the effects that property tax would have, and even some of the unknowns, it was said sometimes like, yeah, I don't know what will happen. Go watch that debate. You can find it on YouTube or Facebook. There's also a lot of good comments. Well, there were a few good comments, but there were a lot of them. So that's always an interesting read as well.
Oh, exactly.
Really appreciate everybody that watched it. A lot of people have watched that, so really appreciate the community for that.
Yeah.
All right, so we were supposed to be already at city council stuff. If
Here we
you
are.
came in late, we had a technical glitch at the beginning because Leif was here. So the first 15 minutes we did struggle with some audio issues,
It's
but
just a
we
rite of
have-
passage now.
we have fixed them. And so now we can talk about the next subject, which is
City
City council.
And
A
almost
5-hour meeting.
almost 5 hours last
4
night.
hours 55 minutes is what the live stream said, but
So-
the first 20 minutes or 15
Yeah,
minutes
like it's
is
still
filler video.
over 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It was a
How
full
do you
meeting.
wrap up a 5-hour meeting?
Yeah,
Do we
don't.
just go through it?
You don't.
Do we want to
You-
just go through it kind of from start to finish?
Okay,
Or-
let's not skip some of the stuff because it's important. It started out good.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Then if we will, we'll do it all.
So all right, let's go. Well, where were you gonna go? I'll defer.
I was going to
guess.
start with his right at the start where Mayor Tom Ross handed out an award to
Yeah.
one of the National Guard staff sergeant who's a medical vet tech, excuse me, and she's been helping out Minot Police Department canines, and she's been doing a fantastic job. And she got an award because she helped a canine at like the middle of the night. It had chemical burns on its paws after chasing someone over fences, underneath trains. It
Yeah, we're
was a-
talking about a police dog.
Yeah, yeah, it's police dog.
Caspian or Cassian.
Something like that. Yeah.
Legendary.
Massive German Shepherd they brought into this chamber.
Very
Beautiful
cool.
dog.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't be saying that if it was growling on my shirt.
But no, that was a great,
It had
great
such nice
start.
teeth. such nice teeth.
With-
Really enjoyed seeing the back of its throat.
right.
It's just incredible.
Very grippy. Then also, Mayor Tom Ross had a couple of proclamations last night. One being October being the month of domestic violence prevention month, which is so trying to keep awareness up for domestic violence, try to prevent any kind of issues that may happen there. It's a horrible situation, nothing that anyone would want to have to go through. Then he also proclaimed this week Fire Prevention Week.
I felt like that was probably
Very fitting.
timely.
Yeah. Understandable. So
And then if I can cut in
please
here, I
do.
can't remember the name of the officer who was given the award for her work with in a domestic violence situation.
That's right.
yes. Yep. Right at
I
the
don't remember
start.
as well.
Can't remember.
Sound like she had done a lot there.
Yeah.
And
She's done
that's-
great work.
We've
with
had a
that.
couple of horrible domestics lately.
Yep.
Mhm.
One where it involved, I believe, 2 attempted murder
It was,
charges.
it was an incredible,
So-
ridiculous situation.
Great work there. Yeah. So in the city manager's report is interesting with that property. Somebody wanted to give property to the city,
Yeah, someone was offering the city
To
of Minot
gift
to apparently.
property.
but and for me this was an interesting deal because then they talked about, all right, so what's going to happen?
Mhm.
They're probably saying we're going to buy gift. What perhaps they mean, and this would me be assuming, which is never a good thing, I've learned, is they're probably going to stop paying taxes on it. That's my guess. Do you think
this point, those
they
effects
may try to sell it, but they probably already have had
tried and it hasn't
conversations
worked.
at least with that. Because the first thing that you do is not like, oh, I got property, I don't want anymore. I wonder if I could just give it to the city. Typically not the line of thinking that
That's
somebody would go through.
not the first-
I would assume,
Yeah.
right? Now, there could be other ties that they have to the city where that is a line of thinking because they literally want to give back. And I respect that if that is. I'm not trying to
Fair.
minimize that. But typically in a standard setting, when I've thought if I wanted to get rid of my house, I've not thought, oh, I should just
I'm
give
gonna
it to the city.
I'm gonna hand it
So-
over.
So if they go and they just let it go, and that the property tax, that's an interesting thing too, because then there's going to be a bunch of not litigation, but there's going to be a huge process that's going to go on right there to
The city now has to update and maintain everything.
right, which they would probably try to. But before that, there's that 3 years
Oh,
where
excuse me. Yeah,
before
both of
even
the
yeah,
county-
with
yeah.
the property tax being
Before-
delinquent. Yeah,
right.
Yep.
and then they're not even going to update it. They're just going to go and
It's just-
auction it.
yeah,
That's all that's going to happen. So in some ways, I'm like,
Could the city of Minot?
Blossom was asking the questions on that line. Maybe it is better just to go and accept it and auction it right now.
Yeah.
Is that the better move? Now you don't want everybody doing that when they have a bad property, because I mean,
You
there's a
could-
chance that
if
nobody
no
will
one
ever
buys
buy
it,
that.
and then
yeah.
the city of Minot saddled with that.
But we're fine with selling it. The city Minot would probably be fine selling it for $1. Like they don't care. They just want it off
Exactly.
their.
They don't want it at that point.
It's just somebody that would take care of it. How do you view that?
I wish I knew where the property was. I mean,
See,
Fair. Yeah, you might
I-
go offer him
you know.
$10.
yeah, exactly.
I have speculation as to where it is, but I have no knowledge, and it's pure assumption, so I'm not going to go there.
It is interesting.
It'd be interesting to see if it becomes if the city accepted it, if more people would do it.
I think city manager Harold Stewart kind of advised against doing it. He said
Yeah,
there's a
he
lot
didn't
of
want it.
potential if the city keeps it and wouldn't.
So he used
auction
the
it.
classic, and I like. I've said it many times. I like Harold, but he uses the classic. This would take the property off the property tax rules.
Yeah,
But if we're going to go through 3 years of not getting paid, and then we're going to auction it off and hope we reclaim the property tax, then why don't we just do that today?
it's a fair point.
No, it's very valid.
Doesn't sound like it's going to happen
No,
unless
it doesn't.
something else is going on
Right.
behind
Well,
the
actually,
scenes.
we don't know what's going to happen.
That's the thing,
because
'cause-
city council asked questions, never got direction, and then Harold is like,
So
"All right," and he kind of just moved on to the next thing, but wasn't
Yeah.
thrilled about it.
great.
Take the next point.
Yeah. So
We're having all kinds of technical
of
difficulties.
course we are. Moving on to the next one, though. That was kind of when they did the Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. They went through their whole summary, their whole bullet point thing, and it was a interesting little setup they had there. It's pretty much the roads and the thoroughfares of the city of Minot, Burlington, and Surrey over the next like 30 to 50 years.
Yes, and because we're going to be considered a metropolitan area, that's kind of the reasoning behind it, as far as I understand.
Yeah, that's where that stemmed from. Yeah, because I don't think we technically are yet, but we're on the precipice of it,
Yeah.
and it's an assumption that it's going to happen at this point. And that went and happened. That was like a 15-20 minute little
12
presentation. 12 minutes.
12 that's
Oh
what
yeah,
he said.
he did say that. That's right. Yep, because he had to leave.
All right. So then consent items.
Mhm.
Oh wait, no,
They had a little
first-
issue with the
the first that improper notification. That was
Yeah.
interesting. I think. All right. So planning commission is the planning commission. Okay. We love the planning commission,
Yes.
right? There's been some really great discussions that's happened over in the planning commission
couple
the
months, yeah.
last couple of months.
Yeah.
There have been some, and we're later on. Well, one of them is the ones that is being addressed right here. One of them is the one that is being addressed right here.
Mhm.
The other one was with Northern Plains Ag, but there's improper notification. But it sounds like legitimately, this is not something that happens very often,
Mhm.
where there's neighbors complaining or putting an appeal
to
in
this kind of length.
because there was an approval. So then there was an appeal to that decision that was made by the planning commission, and that appeal process does not happen very often.
Mhm.
So it sounds like there was a legitimate reason for this, but that was an interesting one to come about.
Yeah, and it had a lot more discussion than I expected it to. Just kind of the
Figuring out,
going about the intricacies of the language of how it needed to be sent out, and
yeah,
the 15 days notice versus like if they could still make it work by the end of this month's meeting, or if they'd have to end up scheduling a special session for it.
I think Alderwoman Lisa Olson
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, we should have a special one
I
for
think-
this if the next council meeting doesn't work out," was a very good move.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's.
glad-
I think that was necessary.
Glad
Just-
City Council sound like they were pretty much behind that.
yeah, just to expedite this as best as possible at that
Yep.
point.
It seems like the
And
right thing.
It sounds like a seasonal issue. Construction is wrapping up for the most part.
Right.
So those issues are
We
important.
can't bank on
Yeah.
last fall being like this fall.
No kidding.
Uh,
Which we actually did get snow around this time last year, and then it melted. And we didn't get snow for months.
Yes, that did happen, though. You're not
So-
wrong. Flipping off of that, though, that's when they moved on to the consent items. There was
Yeah.
like 25 consent
25
items.
and it's interesting to see the consent item process though, because there's a lot of them getting pulled and there's long discussions that are having on consent items. I think if you're an hour and a half into the online video of city council, I don't think you even got to the budget yet,
No, not at all. Not
which
at all.
that's
No.
incredible. That's a very effective,
That shows that there's a lot of discussion happening.
the very discussed city council meeting.
Yep.
Right there. So most of them were Fuller pulled one. Just wanted to make sure that we were using money right, which is a good thing,
Yeah, for that new retention pond that's being built.
which was a very interesting discussion.
It was.
And then there's that deal with the lease,
Mhm.
which was an interesting discussion. What did you think about that?
It was a lot. Blessum brought it up, and you kind of go through it, and I don't know. It was a lot.
So,
you have
Here's
the 5-year take on it. So it's based right now. It has a 5-year renewal process.
and it automatically renews.
Yeah, but it's an automatically renewed thing. And the owner or the leasees, the people that are leasing the property from the city of Minot, originally had this brought up in 2010, I believe, is when they initially got them. It was all set in stone. And so now it's finally come before city council, and they had a lot of discussion with the pricing of it. And should the city of Minot try to have an option so that it doesn't just automatically renew, so we can go at them with a counter at this point, because it hasn't automatically renewed yet. So we can go back and try to rediscuss at this point.
And as I understand it, this is ag land being farmed, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's-
so then there's some runoff in there for the lagoon.
Yeah.
Or
From the city of Minot's lagoons, which
gotcha.
and then they went on a whole nother tangent about the possibilities of in the future.
Yeah,
There's a good
EPA
chance we
getting
won't-
involved.
Yeah, we won't even be able to use the lagoons as we do. We'll have to just
Yeah.
have a whole new kind of water treatment plant, which that land would likely be used for to some extent at that point of some nature. Or if the lagoons weren't being used, then the incentives for the low prices on that leased land wouldn't be there either. It went around the horn a lot.
So there's some give and take. There's some
Yeah.
good for the city, bad, good for the renter, bad.
Exactly.
It's kind of a trade.
So, and that's one thing though that I hate about trades, like in business, is I don't think you always get fair valuation on trade outs.
A lot of times, no.
Somebody is giving something, the valuations don't normally add up, and it sounds like the city might be giving.
a little
in
bit
this
more
in
at
this
this
trade out.
point, especially like maybe
Yeah.
5 years ago, it still wasn't like it was, but
Right.
all of a sudden with the way inflation's really hit, I believe they're getting $40.
Yep.
And right now prices are typically going between like 60 and 75 or something.
Yeah.
They said so.
It sounded like Sorensen said that other land that we
Yeah.
rent out is 75.
Exactly. So like I feel like there could be room for some improvement there.
Interesting.
And
then there was a bunch of amendments to it, and it finally got through, or it got voted down.
At the end. It got voted. The final amendment was voted down at the
The
end.
final amendment. was
Yep.
voted down.
Yep.
So that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
All right.
Then item 22 was pulled by Councilman Scott Samuelson. That was the purchase of 2 new fire trucks by the city of Minot. He just wanted to extend congratulations to the city staff and the fire department for finding some economically good options for 2 new and not brand new engines, but 2 new to us used engines to get in and get using that we could desperate, or maybe not desperately, but use well. Yes.
And we had the property demolition. This is from an old council meeting.
Yeah.
So
got
that
back up.
sounds like that there's not much progress that's made there. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that one.
Yeah, we won't spend as much time as was spent on it in the meeting. Long story short, sounds like they're proceeding with the demolition. It won't happen officially until it happens, but with one of the 2 properties that was associated, it sounds like almost a guarantee it's going to be demoed. And with the other one, I feel like it's a certainty, but there's still a chance for a possibility where they could have respite on it if they're able to make progress in the next until the demolition starts.
Interesting.
Odds are, yeah.
Then Samuelson brings up some stuff and says that council should not have to approve old projects.
Yeah, a couple of things with the facade project was going on with the first 2 items that got brought up, 7.1 and 7.2, and Samuelson was against both of them. He came up and said, hey, I am against this kind of project. I don't think that us being current council members should just be forced to continue passing things that were done by previous councils, which is a great sentiment. And so he voted against both of those items. He was the lone dissenting voice in those.
So how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
You're almost city council.
Well, I had a quick look at the first property in question, which had to do with the automatic door and stuff. And this was an apartment building.
Yeah.
This is residential, essentially.
Okay.
And
I
really don't understand why we're using economic development money in that sense for a facade grant there. Perfectly honest, I'm not a fan of the facade grant program.
Sure.
There is that.
So
there is that. We've heard that. But should the city council have to go, and should new city council members feel obligated, like
to continue
old things that were passed that they need to continue those?
Yeah, this can tie into later. So
boy, will it. Here's the thing. I lost the election, so they didn't like what I had to say, apparently. Those people are elected they ran for office. They get to, I'm not saying run in their carte blanche and do whatever you want. That's probably not a good move.
So,
but they gave you the citizens gave those 3 new councilmen the authority.
Absolutely.
So they have that authority then to do what they want.
Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at it like on the presidential side, that would mean just pulling one thing that was controversial in its day, Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
We heard a lot about Obamacare on every side. So that means that there's
next
probably
Congress
has to feel an obligation to keep that in place. Like, no, seems like
this is where it gets interesting, because just to pull something away, what does that accomplish? In theory, you have to replace it with something better.
Yeah. Sometimes, right? Yeah. Well, but you would feel that the facade program doesn't need a replacement.
Or it could be managed differently, or it could be funded differently, or it could be,
a requirement that the city doesn't necessarily maybe help, but
or maybe
or how
a board was set up, or
something. Sure.
Or the people on the board were managed differently, or
speaking of boards,
Life he won't bite. All right, let's go on to the next one.
This was the second reading of the 2025 budget.
Holy.
Yes, and Mike Blessum came out with a duo or trio of amendments on it. First one, he wanted to amend the landfill rate sheets, so pretty much to adjust some of the new rates and fees that will be coming in place, and that passed unanimously. Second one, he wanted to bring down a magic fund cap from $1 million to $250,000. So the way that
was one of the buckets.
Yeah, that was the bucket system. Yep. So you have the way the fund works. There's a bunch of different areas it can go into. They're quote unquote, for lack of better terminology, to use what they were saying last night, buckets. So as soon as one bucket fills up, it can spill over into the next. So they're all still gaining something. And so this one at one time had a cap of $1 million. So until it got to $1 million, it wouldn't start overflowing. Blessum decided to try and implement a $250,000 cap to it instead. And that was, I believe it was the one that was on state-backed interests. So things that the Bank of North Dakota, the state, would put a matching interest into some kind of development projects they had.
Okay.
And that ended up getting shot down with a 3-4 vote, with the 3 new guys in favor, 4 old against.
Hey, not new versus old, buddy.
This is the only time that happened, I believe, last night. So
Okay.
I think if anything, that serves applause. That's
Right.
the only time it happened. Then the next one, Scott Samuelson, city councilman, brand new, or not brand
City
new,
councilman.
very new, presented a motion to eliminate the $569,000 going towards the Minot area EDC for the economic development.
So that would be the chamber EDC, right?
Yes. the
So
Minot
he
Chamber
made a
EDC.
motion to defund. Now here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Yeah,
'Cause he stated why.
that's the
Why?
interesting part.
Say it, Kyler. Say it.
Oh gosh, I don't know. To paraphrase here, he doesn't want the city to, or excuse me. Okay, so first off, the Minot Chamber EDC, he says we're both backing Keep It Local and also putting their statement out against Measure 4, which
Okay.
they both think, at least the latter is for sure true, and the former, I believe, is also true. They took donations, or at least put some money into the Keep It Local department.
Okay.
Yep, I can't guarantee that, but the way it sounded between
All right. So
conversations.
what you're saying is not only did they vocally come out and support something, you're saying that they received
put money towards it.
Minot, City Minot, and who knows
But here's-
which bucket,
But here's the kicker of
Okay.
where the money came from, according to the Chamber EDC. So 60% of their funding comes from City of Minot taxpayers, things like that. The other 40% is driven by their members and their membership fees and
Okay.
the businesses that are included in that. So the EDC says that the money that was used towards anything Keep It Local or any of that Measure 4 issues was all from their business interests and their non-city funded side of it.
okay.
That's
So I think this is fair. This is not trying to paint you in a corner. Okay. But we went through the measures and you're against Measure 4.
Yep.
How do you feel about the chamber receiving money from the city, also receiving, call it private money, and supporting something?
So yeah, is it a government entity? Is it private?
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
they have their membership, right?
Right.
You can pay. I think it's $500 for the lowest. I think an annual membership at 10,000 is their highest.
Gotcha.
So sure, it's this quasi government.
Yeah.
Whatever it
itself.
is you want to call it. And I think Blessum brought up an interesting point when Brecca was at the podium,
Mhm.
asked her, where did this money come from? And she only, I think it was 3 entities.
something like that. Yeah.
Now, the line item in the budget is $634,000 in sales tax
Mhm.
development or economic development money goes towards the chamber EDC.
Okay.
Everything but 75,000 of that was the total, I believe, right?
Yeah. And that
75,000, Brecca pointed out properly, is Task Force 21 to promote the
Mhm.
air base, what have you.
and
Okay.
and that wasn't included in the
So here's the thing. Can an organization that collects tax money then take a position on property taxes? I think Scott had a valid point to say that,
by all means.
but I'm not going to forget the fact that I think I know where Scott's opinion is on Measure 4 too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
No, well,
Without
I
a
don't.
doubt.
I don't. We can't say for sure. Actually, I think he came
I
on the
think he's-
podcast and said it. But we did see him in the picture delivering the signatures to the Capitol.
So
So from that you would assume he's for it, and that's fine. I think city councilmen should be able to have an opinion one
Of
way or
course.
another.
if everyone else can, why
But I
can't
get what
they?
you're saying, that
Yeah.
like it feels like there could be an conflict of interest there.
Mhm.
Oh, he's not the only one who feels that way.
Well,
And
I'm sorry. There's a lot of conflict of
No,
interest with
yeah,
the
but
chamber EDC.
with the chamber EDC, but even you're kind of alluding to that there could be a conflict of interest with Scott saying that.
Oh,
Maybe.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It wasn't surprising that it came from him. Keep in mind, there was only one dissenting vote, right?
Yeah.
And that was Scott himself.
yeah,
It-
everyone
right.
else voted. Yeah.
So with that, then
Or
should
no,
the-
there were 6 dissenting votes.
And he
Scott was the only
that
one in
voted
favor.
Yeah.
so if the chamber went to its members and said, "Hey, this is an issue. Do you guys? How do you get?" And I'm not saying this is a process that was done, but if they did this, and then the chamber members are like, "Yeah, we as businesses, we want property taxes to stay in effect," and so they're like, "All right, well, give us some money. Let's go and get together and get behind this." Is that something that the chamber should do?
See, if they're truly a membership organization, I don't have a problem with that.
Just
But
they need the same.
then I don't see why they have to have that contract for economic development.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So
I can
either
see that.
way,
Mhm.
a motion to defund the chamber EDC is a pretty gutsy move.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just to throw that out there was, I mean,
That was
he
wow.
went into it knowing it wouldn't go through, but
Yeah.
he wanted the shock value of it too. He wanted,
He wanted the shock value, but that's because you have a podcast. He wanted on record that he does not support
of course,
the chamber going and supporting
measures in general. No,
right?
exactly.
Measures
Yeah,
in general,
yeah,
or
you're right.
even politicians.
Yeah.
I
Because he
think
said
that's
it
the
wasn't
case.
just the chamber. I probably paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of he wants to defund all agencies that put forth opinions on publicly initiated measures. I don't think that's not a quote, but that's along the lines of what he was saying last
So-
night. And
Yeah, and so that'd be any agency that is receiving
funds from
the city.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, I think I'd have to agree that that's a fair point.
100%. And Fuller made a great point on that same issue too, to the EDC, like, optics, regardless of how, if it's right or not, how does this look from an
Mhm.
outside perspective?
Okay, so then let me ask this, and this isn't really a necessary argument here, but what if the chamber's like, okay, fine, we don't want your $600,000.
They were just
Yeah, they're like, we'll
their own
we'll
thing.
figure it out among our members. Does that hurt the city of Minot?
not immediately, but it has the potential to. I don't know if it, I don't
They
think it
no
would,
longer
but
like they get to go off of a viewpoint of what they want done. Is
instead of
basically
this,
what I'm getting at.
like they wouldn't be held by the city at that point.
Right, the city would have no control. You talk about losing local control. You right
The
there.
city all of a sudden has
That would be losing local control right
all
there.
of it. Yeah.
But losing local control of what? Economic development?
Yeah, and
Or
is that so? Tax like people don't
Losing
love
control
tax.
over that. Yeah.
Tax Force 21 is a mixed bag, right?
Mhm.
But that, I mean, in some ways, that's important for the city of Minot. Going and having those relations with the Air Force Base. Do we want to lose the Air Force Base? Is that something we want? No, we
course
don't
not.
want to do that.
Yeah.
And the chamber works hard to, and maybe it's unnecessary, but they do work to make sure that relationship stays open.
Mhm.
They work. I mean, we interviewed Brecca. I mean, they're working out in Seattle.
Yeah.
So it might feel like it's unnecessary, but trying to maintain relationships there because we have to get our goods somewhere. We have to get it to a port and maintain those. So they're doing
There's
stuff
relief.
that does affect
The city.
the city. I don't think I can get you another technical difficulty to get another water. Oh,
He's
you-
ready.
You got
He's
one.
got
Okay.
the other one.
Okay.
But they do, the things they do directly do affect
Right.
the city. And
So if we lost that relationship with the chamber where there's not $600,000 going to the chamber, does that hurt the city?
does I guess, unfortunately, to answer your question with the question, does losing that, them doing it, does that mean they still do it? Or does the city have to find someone else to do it for them?
We still have the Magic Fund Screening Committee.
The Magic Fund.
Magic fund.
It's still there.
That's
Yeah.
fair. It's not going anywhere.
It's interesting. An interesting thing. And yeah, do you then just go and hire 600,000? Do you hire 4 people to go and maybe even save $100,000 a year? Hire 4 people
Be that
and
logistical
right. Is that what you do? Is that what you
department
want?
of some kind?
have an economic growth department in the city. We could expand the city.
Well, when we get to the end of the city council meeting, I might have some comments, put it that way.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right.
Next.
There was 7.5. It passed unanimously. That was the fast issue they got through. But 7.6, this was a flood project. And it was coming before city council.
All right. So the first question that has to be asked
Go ahead.
is on 7.6, and this is something that we talked about in our pre-show, is how is former Mayor Sean Sitma ready to go?
he was ready to, he showed up to the meeting. He was there from the start. He hung out until this topic got brought up.
Yeah.
He went to the front, and he was a very passionate man when he had to say on this.
He sat down to my left, and I can't see that well, but his foot was tapping, so I
Yeah.
know he was going to be.
He was ready to rock. But and it could have been just budget meeting, second reading.
Of course.
It's an important one.
Yeah.
Doing his due diligence.
Without a doubt.
Hey, we had him on, and it was a
Friend
good
of the show.
It was a good talk.
It was.
It was definitely a friend of the show. So we'd love to have him back. Not trying to throw stones at him, just asking the question: was there somebody that said, "Hey, you probably want to be at this one," or was it just happenstance that he was there and there was a subject that he was very passionate about that got discussed very intensely?
Yeah, that's a.
Do you got any ideas, Leif?
He had a stack of papers that makes mine look minuscule here.
Wow.
And I've been known to hand out stuff to city council.
Oh yeah, he had handouts ready, right?
Oh yeah.
He did prior to
So
the meeting starting.
Okay.
he had his ducks in a row, put it that way.
Yeah. So he was there for a reason. And perhaps his reason has nothing to do with anybody telling him what was going to happen.
Of course.
But he was there for a reason. So talk about it. Talk about it, Kyler. Lead the way.
Yeah. So Rob Fuller right away. So first of all, it's the item that comes up. It was to the Service River Joint Board park construction. It was the original price that was quoted was like 39 million, and now it was coming through over 50 at like 52 million. So the quote is incredibly inflated from the original price that we had, and so the city has to now pass that amended dollar amount to go through. And so Councilman Rob Fuller gets on right away, and he starts talking about, hey, is in the current climate, is flood control at the way it's progressing the best way to go forward? And I'm paraphrasing here. But he was questioning the need to potentially pause it or maybe slow down flood control because of the inflationary prices just being ridiculous. Going from 39 to 42 million is one thing. Going from 39 to 52 million is a whole different ballgame.
It's a lot.
And so he was bringing up the question of need of potentially pausing it and what it would look like. And so that's when Jason Sorensen came up, the public works director, came up and answered a few questions. And he mentioned Sean Sitma had some insurance things to talk about and how prices would likely change if flood control were to be paused or halted. And so former Mayor Sitma steps up, and he has a impassioned delivery of the potential increases of pricing on Valley residents specifically. So if any home that has a federally backed loan, and very soon, I don't know the timetable on it, but Minot will soon go from being a moderate risk flood zone to a high risk flood zone. And that's in the Valley anyways. And so on all of those federally backed loans, there's going to be an increase in if you don't carry flood insurance over. And so that's something that he wanted to talk about. And then he also mentioned on how outside forces are going to come into play with this. Like you have the big massive storms that are going on around this country right now in the past couple of weeks, and how those are going to raise insurance prices.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week with Miranda Schuler.
Exactly. And so lo and behold, that's going to affect us in some indirect way eventually up here too, because now insurance rates are going to go up. And he wants to, he straight up, to quote him, he said he felt like a second class citizen because of how he could be affected by the pausing of flood control and what could affect Valley residents. And him and Councilman Fuller went back and forth on it for quite a while there, Leif. It was the opposite of rubber stamping anything, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And both individuals, I think, made some good points.
Oh, fantastic. They both
Now,
had great
here's
arguments.
the thing. Like, is there any instance where spending $53 million should be easy?
Like, shouldn't.
I don't think so.
Not for the city of Minot.
And no, I don't see it as putting blame on anyone. Maybe other than the contractors to say, why the heck is this stuff getting so out of control?
Did the contractors, were they there?
If they were, they didn't come and speak.
Were the engineering firms there?
I believe Ackerman, Ryan Ackerman was there. And of course, city engineer Lance Meyer was there.
Yeah. Okay.
And Sorensen did make the comment that, sometimes, or he did have knowledge of one time they backed out of one contract because they knew that the contractor knew ahead of time that he was the only bidder.
So,
well, that's obviously a problem.
Yep.
And these aren't like building a commercial building or a house or a residential development. This is pretty specialized work that's not easy to do. There's only so many outfits that can do it.
Yeah.
And let's face it, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So
it is that. We've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a crazy debate. It won't be done anytime soon. It's an ongoing thing. There are two very passionate and frankly, both sides have very valid points. There's very in-depth subject that has, I don't want to say blighted, but put the city, has been on the city of Minot's topic list for, obviously the last 13 years and will continue to be for another.
Yeah. But it seems like the effect of it is dying. People are not as passionate about flood control as they were 6 years ago, especially 13 years ago. But
an understanding of what the issues are.
Yeah.
Like the fancy word hydrology was mentioned a couple of times, and I had to do some studying looking up on.
I know what hydrogen is. It's H, the H and the H2O.
But to give people an idea, we're in the valley, so people think downhill is one thing, but there is no real slope to this river.
Gotcha.
The Coffer Dam over by Roosevelt Park, where the fishing gets kind of good.
Yep.
Okay, over right just east of the zoo. That's a foot lower than the 6th Street underpass by the library.
Really?
So that gives you an idea of why the 6th Street underpass flooded so often.
Without a doubt.
But that's why that river doesn't flow much. And then when you get the rain event that we had, what happens?
Right. Yep. It floods. That's what happens. It's not good. So should flood control be slowed down?
I will get to that.
Okay.
I don't think there should be a full stop of flood control by any means. I think it needs to continue, and at least there has to be a general finish line that has to come to a point. Slow down, maybe. I'm not opposed to that. Also, this is probably something that's expensive and probably not even realistic, but why not start looking at other options on how to finish it? We have a plan in place, and it's a good plan that's going to get us to the end. What if we start looking at other options on how we can get to the end faster?
Okay. Yeah. That's good. So when you say other options,
so milestone 1 is about to be finished on the west side of town.
Yeah.
And so how to more quick, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know any kind of depth knowledge on this by any stretch, but a way to streamline the process to get it done, hopefully faster, potentially cheaper, whether cheaper,
Right.
Hopefully cheaper. If not, then there's no point in this. And maybe not do every single project that was planned, try to maybe streamline some of them.
And I interrupt you, but whenever you go and you tell that to someone that is knowledgeable about insurance, it seems like their comeback is, if you do that, don't do every project that's planned, then insurance rates are going to go up. But I don't know how true that is. Like I get that there's a degree of truth to that. I'm not disputing their expertise there, but what I'm saying is
how much
we have an entire plan. Do we have some stuff in that plan that is I shouldn't say unnecessary, but it is
bloated
above par. Like it's really good. And so those things are above and beyond that. We don't need to keep those insurance rates lower off. I don't know.
And yeah, it's a touchy subject. There's a lot obviously there's, I mean, we're only not even like what, maybe a quarter of the way done with it.
Right. The
So
full
the
flood
full
control
project.
plan.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. So if you went and did look for alternative options, do you bring in another engineering firm to take a look?
I mean, you don't have to. I feel like you could. It
Wh-
never
wh-
hurts to get a second opinion on if you're going to have surgery on something. It's a big surgery. It's going to cost a lot of money and
Yeah.
take you out of commission for a long time. How often do you go to one doctor and you don't try to go to someone else to get an opinion on it? I'm not saying that we have to go to a different engineering firm. I just feel like it could be an option.
Just to get a different
Another-
perspective. It's not
yes.
that we need to change engineering firms as a city,
Exactly.
just to get another perspective.
Just different point of view.
What
on
do
it.
you think, Leif?
Well, having options is always good. Paying for them sometimes isn't.
That's the flip side.
Well, here, let's go take a step back. Measure 3.
Mhm.
Let's limit the amount of spending on the principal.
Mhm.
Well, you see, this is where I have a problem with it.
Sure.
If we could use legacy fund somehow,
To-
that's why I just don't think putting the lock on the people's money isn't always
Isn't
such a great
necessarily-
idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking $1 billion project, 1.3
Minimally,
Who,
yeah.
Like, who even wants to talk numbers now? Because
We don't
found
know.
out it grows out of control.
Yeah.
How many zeros is in billion? Who knows, right? It's just a huge long number.
9-ish. 7.
So yeah. So should we slow down flood control?
I think you have to be careful with the money you spend.
Mhm.
That's why I don't fault the position right now. Like, I mean, these estimates are coming in way low. Like, why are things so high?
Mhm.
And if we want to be responsible, we can only spend as much money as we can, right? I
Right,
mean, people are hurting.
Yeah.
So, and now just to back up even further here, like sales tax is going towards flood control, right?
Yep.
There's no essentially property tax going towards that. That's not.
Yeah, that's not an
And
issue.
we're sharing it
us.
with the state. There's some federal money, and
Yep.
keep in mind with this particular project that there's a good chunk of that's a
a
federal,
lot of federal money. Yeah.
which is good to hear. But like, people are hurting,
Mhm.
and that's where sales tax that adds up too.
It does.
It really does.
I mean, yeah, I've heard that there's a chance that there'll be in the near future ballots that will have sales tax increases. We'll be voting on that, and it's an interesting thing. We reduce property tax but increase sales tax. Like, I don't know.
Remember earlier when we were talking about city versus rural? Ooh,
Yeah.
is that going to be tough? I mean,
Yeah.
even here in Minot, I know people on they have 6-figure incomes, and they're going to Bismarck to shop because the tax is lower.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the prices are sometimes lower.
Sure.
Hmm.
Benefits living on I-94 closer to the supply chains.
Or if you can drive.
Yeah. Flip side. Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
That's a long bike ride.
Yeah. A couple days there.
And how do you
Oh
get
no,
the
I've
stuff
done a
back?
century in a day.
Have you? You done her?
Did you feel good the next day? Did you do a century the next day too?
No, not the next.
Didn't
day.
come back next day. Hey, good
Next
for you,
day
though.
was bathtub time. Getting
A
all
century-
sorts
up.
of food.
A century is
Not doing-
100 miles on a bike.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a haul.
That's a lot.
How long
The
did it-
crazy guys are doing century off road.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
insane.
That would be.
Oh,
So interesting city council meeting.
yeah, it was.
Give me like 3 takeaways from it.
My big 3: budget passed.
Yeah.
Well, not, the next step in the budget has passed.
Second
You
reading.
have Scott Samuelson bringing up potential defunding of the EDC. That was a crazy one for me. And then the last one, the big spat
Conversation
between
with Sitma.
between Sean Sitman and Rob Fuller. That was, and even to go further on that too, Mike Blessum was talking about it, and he loves to ask the questions. Of course, that's what he says he got voted
In your
for.
mind.
What?
Nothing.
Okay. And so Mike Blessum made the point like, hey, you don't know where I'm going to vote on this. I until I can find a different way through, of course, I'm going to vote for this project to go through. But
Mhm.
so there's still a process to play out here. And
Interesting.
it was, that vote ended at 5-2. Samuelson Fuller went against. So that project is continuing, and 7-7 went unanimously. Then we went to No one showed up for the public personal appearances, which was at like 10 o'clock at night. And
So maybe they did show up. They just left.
maybe, I don't know by any stretch at that
Leif,
point.
top 3 things from city council meeting.
Okay. You're giving me this opportunity, I take it.
Yes.
Well, I can't mute your mic. So.
After, okay, what was it? Number 9 was
The
Discussion, miscellaneous
Yeah,
discussion.
this was, yeah.
Councilman Blessum brought up 3 things. I
Yeah.
think they all passed.
Yeah.
But the last one, interestingly enough, was to ask the mayor to essentially create another committee.
Okay.
Now, if anybody knows my history, my ears perked up at this point. It was hour 4:45, whatever.
They finally picked up.
So this committee will be called the Economic Development Plan Committee,
Okay.
made up of 2 members from the council and 5 from the community. And it passed 6-1, right?
Yep.
Who was the dissenting?
Olson.
Lisa Olson.
If you go back, and I keep referencing this because I remember it, because like Sitma going to the podium, you know what? It takes guts. And I
Yeah,
will quote I'll quote a good friend again. Doing the easy or comfortable thing isn't always the right thing.
Easier, comfortable.
Doing the right thing is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
July 5th, 2022, I called out Kevin Black and Ryan Ackerman and the city council at that meeting, July 5th, 2022. I said, you guys are violating Magic Fund guidelines because Kevin Black and Ryan Ackerman were receiving money via the Service Basing Planning Council. So it is kind of a roundabout way, but they were still benefiting. And I'm the guy who said, hey, maybe you should rewrite the guidelines. I didn't think it'd end up going the way it did. I mean, yeah, the buckets are great and everything. That's fine. But what they did is they gutted the conflict of interest portion of the guidelines.
Sure.
They totally removed it. And Blessum brought that up. He said, anybody of us who are elected can bring a project of our own. And as long as we disclose and abstain on the vote, it can pass.
That's fine. Yeah.
And he says that's wrong. And I agree with him. It's wrong. Now, what has happened over these years with the Magic Fund, etc.?
You honestly know way more about the Magic Fund than I do.
Okay, I brought that stuff up. They
Yeah.
gutted that.
Yeah.
How did the vote go to approve the new guidelines? Remember, this is before the election.
Yes, this is before
7-0.
7-0.
Mayor Ross,
Gotcha.
Janser, Olson,
Yep.
Bittner, Padregula, Burlingame, all voted Evans, all voted in favor of it. And I'm sitting there going, I didn't go to the podium then.
Yeah.
But they knew how I felt. Okay. We had a lot of economic development issues, letter after letter after letter from the Chamber EDC endorsing what? The Big M project,
Sure.
Right.
the TIF,
Yep.
the Trax TIF, the Epic Hotel or apartment complex on top of the garage,
Their projects, and
which never happened, never even made it the proposal.
Yep.
But the letter from the Chamber EDC was part of the packet. So the endorsement was there.
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Okay.
What happens then?
The very first episode of Minot Matters. I think we got the host here. Do you remember who was on that?
Yeah, Mark Lyman.
Mark Lyman, the economic development director for the Chamber EDC. He gets his salary via tax dollars for economic development. What did he say?
Now this part I won't remember.
Okay. He said Minot needs to support Epic and Todd Burning.
Yeah. I remember
Okay?
that now.
Now,
Yep.
if he's lobbying to do that, fine, so be it. But remember what
All of a
Mr.
sudden,
Samuelson said,
Where do you
All right.
draw the line?
like we're using economic development money now
Mhm.
to lobby on behalf of tax cuts for some people that other taxpayers have to make up the shortfall. To me, that's an issue.
Right.
Sure.
Recently, what has happened in the news?
Well,
A lot.
Epic hasn't done so well.
it's been quite epic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their downfall has been epic. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey,
We
pun
got you.
intended, I
We
guess,
got
on
you.
your part, not mine. But okay, Todd Burning apparently
There-
cannot be located to be
Yeah.
served papers. A company by the name of what?
7
Seven properties,
Properties.
management.
Management, yeah.
Sir,
Sure.
seven
Se-
properties. I can't remember. Is suing Todd bringing Epic for over $500,000.
Mhm. That's a lot of money.
Who is 7 properties?
Well,
That
I
is
found that out
Kevin
today.
Black.
And
So
Yeah.
if you look back, we have project after project, a board director for Chamber EDC is looking to financially benefit, and the chamber claims that they're good with economic development and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to right now, I am asking Mayor Ross, please appoint me to this committee. I
fair
think
enough.
I have a history. I think I know it very well. I'm saying put me on this committee and I will look out for the conflict of interest that they have thrown out the window.
I can safely assume you've already filled out the paperwork online requesting to be on committees for the city.
No, I'm going to do that today. That meeting was late last night.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. It went pretty late.
I'm looking for this business online. 7th Avenue. I don't know. We'll find it one day.
We'll confirm it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
7 properties.
So, yeah.
If you go to anybody can go, just go to the Secretary of State business lookup, and it's actually the number 7 followed by SEN.
I gotcha. So
That's creative.
where do they go from
That
there?
way it's hard to find. Yeah. Where do we go from here? There you go. You found it. Kevin Black. There he is.
And
Home address and everything.
yeah,
Gotta love it.
And that's government.
Yeah, that's
form,
open. That's open
but
record.
That's
Right
open
there.
record right
Yeah.
there.
Yep. Absolutely. Very interesting.
it was a crazy night, crazy day.
Chad Chalmers is saying Vegas odds on the mayor appointing Leif Snyder.
Probably not very good.
I don't think it's a 0%.
About as good as me being your sound engineer.
Boy, oh boy, have we had some problems lately, man.
Yeah,
It's
It
terrible.
was a fun day. We
Yeah.
made it to the end. We
Yeah.
got through.
I didn't anticipate problems like that, but yeah, here we are.
We did
So,
it. Leif and-
Actually, we did testing. That's the bummer part. Like 2 people watching, we didn't just wing this. We winged one thing, and we didn't have a problem with that one thing. That part we did
this
testing
was the
on.
first time, like pre-production for a show, that we had been ready.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes prior to show.
Yeah, we were good to go.
We were sitting here ready
It was
to
because
roll.
Leif was here.
Yeah.
We were ready. And then
And this all
the
happens.
curse of Leif hit us.
Yeah.
And
Well, hold it now. Before you kick me out of here to get your sound back.
Yeah.
Don't you have something coming up Thursday?
so this is pretty exciting. This part's exciting. I'm not looking forward to Thursday personally, but what I am looking forward to is us rolling out a second episode of Minot Talk every day.
Yes.
One day, it'd be incredible if we had at least an hour of this every single day. Well, weekday. Wouldn't that be cool? Does Minot, I shouldn't use the word deserve, but wouldn't that be good for Minot if they had every day people commenting on things that are happening and bringing awareness to the things that are happening in Minot?
I think discussion is necessary.
Absolutely. That's one of the major goals of the Dakota. Just create conversation. Let's just
Yep.
create conversation. Let's hear it. So on Thursdays at 8, we're going to start a second deal. So we have
Yep.
Tuesdays at 2 and Thursdays at 8. This particular one, yeah, we're going to be
Some-
going
some
over.
things
We
to-
were
to
working on
address.
having some debates and didn't work out like we thought it might. And we're going to go and give the full timeline of events, how that went down, what people said, both sides, make sure that we clear the air. It's probably not as nefarious as people are trying to make it out to be.
No.
It's going to be a game of misunderstanding, and a couple other things.
We'll get
So,
to it on Thursday.
Thursday at 8.
Hopefully, if
You'll hear
this Thursday thing does play out, like Jonathan said, we will start expanding to doing more mornings. And
Yeah. So
we'll make sure you check us out, tune in, or watch later the day on Thursday. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check us out, YouTube, Facebook, mydakotan.com. All the
do it all.
yeah,
Just do it all.
everything.
We're on news
We're
break.
everywhere.
Wherever you're at, we're there.
You betcha.
So it's good to know. Well, Leif, thanks for coming on today.
Anytime.
Perfect.
Appreciate it. Even Thursdays at 8.
Yep.
Not that time. Like what about Fridays at like 4 p.m.
Yeah.
4 a.m.
Oh, gosh. I'm not
No
going to
thanks.
commit to
All right,
that.
Like what if you just went through life? Because the other thing that the classic one that people pick on is, how are you doing today? Great. So then you just start asking a bunch of questions of how they're doing great.
Yeah.
You're like, no, actually, I'm doing pathetic.
You-
Okay.
You, want to really know?
Right?
You want to really find
There-
out?
what was really epic is when you ask somebody that and they're like, well,
Pretty rough.
so I have this going on. My health is bad because I have these 5 problems. You're like, all right. Here's the deal. I didn't really want to know. I'm sorry. I messed up.
I shouldn't have asked that. I opened up the possibility for the question.
So then you just go, it's great to see you.
Yes.
No questions asked.
No, end it there.
All right. For real though, thank you for watching this episode of Minot Talk. We'll be back this Thursday, 8 a.m. with a fun story. And then we'll be talking about other stuff like Ward County Commission and other things that are happening in the Ward County area. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.